You're listening to Ready, Set, Go Real Estate Investing Podcast, presented by Brandon Elliott. This show will be going over all aspects of real estate investing and is intended to educate, motivate, and prepare you to take action on your first or next real estate investment. For more information, please visit BrandonElliottInvestments.com. Thank you for listening and enjoy.
Welcome back, everyone, to Ready, Set, Go Real Estate Investing Podcast. I'm your host, Mr. Brandon Elliott. We got Ron in the house today. What's happening, Ron? How are you?
Brandon, how are you today? Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I appreciate you jumping on. So you've been in the game for a minute. Started off over in Connecticut, moved down to Florida recently, which congratulations on the move. You got out of the business to a certain degree.
To a degree.
Yeah. You had about almost 800 units at one point and down to about 134 units now with some partners and so forth.
With some partners, yes.
But what's really cool is you also sold, you were the owner of the real estate investing associations locally in Connecticut at the time, right?
That's right.
Just got out of that, which is exciting. So talk to me. You got a bunch of things going on. You got this 31-page lease agreement that you got copyrighted even, which is, I love it.
How sad that we need a 31-page lease agreement, though, right? I mean, I'm the first to admit that.
Yeah.
It's a necessary evil. You're going to carry a big stick these days.
Yeah. But Ron, for anybody that doesn't know who you are, where you're from, your background, do you mind just giving that 30,000-foot view for the listeners and myself?
Absolutely. It's nothing exciting, I have to tell you. I'm a high school educated nobody from central Connecticut. I'm just Joe Everyman who just got tired of working decades ago. I lived in Los Angeles, my wife and I, and we had the great idea that if we could buy enough rentals and get enough people to go to work every single day, and then give us a third of their paycheck on the first of the month, then we don't have to go to work anymore. And it was really nothing sexier than that, but you can't do that in LA, right? I mean, because a 6-unit building's going to cost you, what, $8 million, and just not cash flow. But where we grew up in Connecticut, and so the Northeast, the Midwest, you can buy these small multis, and that's how we started. And that was kind of really our sweet spot, and we were able to...
Just 4 units and under?
Tried to go a little bit bigger than that. If you go 5 units and over, that's commercial financing. Yeah. Much easier, right? So residential's 4 and under, think hard, right? Because there's okay, where do you work? What's your W-2? Sure. I want to see the tax return, your pay stubs. How are you going to pay us back? Where you buy a 10-unit building, they're not asking those questions. They're saying, hey, Ron, how's the building going to pay us back? Yep. And of course, the SCR loans and all that. So you can buy a commercial building, 5 units and above, with no job or no tax return. How crazy is that, right? So that was our sweet spot. And we just started acquiring these little non-sexy, we called them, oil wells, and just pump money. And it was low-income housing. It's nothing sexy. So we moved back to Connecticut from LA. And just over time started acquiring, and then did a lot of owner financing, master leasing, because at some point you run out of down payment money to go to a bank, right? I mean, at 20, 25% down, you can do that a couple times, but do it 25 times. And so kept going, opened up a property management company. My wife did. I had nothing to do with that. I ran our portfolio. She built that up to a fairly large property management company, and all low-income housing. Our tenants, we were the last stop before they slept under a bridge. If they can't make it work with us, so we were, we play with the word slumlord, but, we provided good, clean, safe, affordable housing. But if you want a friend, buy a puppy. I've got a 31-page lease, and I just as soon file an eviction than work it out. Because if I have to work it out, we've been down this road. You've earned your way into our buildings, and now the next stop is a bridge. And I hate that, but that's just what it is. Yep. So did that for a number of years. And then probably 6 or 7 years ago, I guess closer to 7, the REI in Connecticut, CT REI, which is at the time, the 5th largest REI in the United States out of 200 REIs, which surprises a a lot of people. I know, it's surprising, but it's a robust investing community. And that was really a cool, 13,000 members and associates. Wow. Yeah, it's a big organization. People think little old Connecticut, but if you think about it, we were wedged literally halfway between Boston and New York. Yeah. And the New Yorkers who are buying 3 caps in Brooklyn, which is no cash flow, they come to Hartford, the Class C and D towns around there. And, years ago, not so much today, years ago, you could get 9 caps just tripping over them. So we were the land of milk and honey to New Yorkers and Bostonites who can't get cash flow. And so it's a robust investing community. And I ran that for, well, up until 6 months ago. So I ran that for 6.5 years, and I had 2 partners on that, full disclosure, and we worked well as a team. But what was cool about that is I go from this low-income landlord, just, full contact landlording. It's not a theory. It's a contact sport, but wildly profitable. And to actually going into REIA mode and helping people on that journey. And that was just the coolest experience for me. I never thought I would be the guy to enjoy helping somebody else, because that's just not how my DNA is. My DNA is I'm going to get the building, not you, and I'm going to raise your rent, and and that's just how it is. But for the first time, I got to experience the other side of it and give back. And I got to tell you, I really enjoyed that. And the amount of people that and again, I had 2 partners, so it wasn't just me, that we got to help hundreds of people not only begin their investing journey, but just thrive. And that was really cool. So to kind of wrap this story up, sold almost all of our portfolio about 4 years ago, retired to a beach in Florida because, that's the law, right? Yeah. And
Coast mentality.
It totally is. Yeah. And I hike my pants up to here and bitch full time, and then sold the REIA about 6 months ago. And I used to go back to Connecticut for 3 days every month for our monthly meeting and coaching classes. So I was doing that for 4 years. Sold the REIA about 6 months ago to an investor group who now runs it, and they're just absolutely killing it, which I love. Yeah. So now I'm sitting here in Florida with nothing to do. And I always thought, if I had nothing to do, right? You grow up with nothing and you think, well, you just sit on a beach all day drinking margaritas. And it turns out, even for a lazy guy like me, that's not true. Yeah. So I used to get a lot of people would ask me, hey, your lease, because it was like a thing in Connecticut. Can I get a copy? Can I get a copy? And so I started selling it. So I bought the domain name bulletprooflease.com. And it's a 31-page slumlord's lease. I mean, everybody hates the slumlord, but when it's payday, I'm the guy getting paid, nobody else, and especially in COVID too, right? So I sell it on bulletprooflease.com. It's 31 pages, fully editable. You can change it for your locale. And that led to people contacting me. And I'm primarily on TikTok, which is pathetic. I don't know how to edit a video. And when I make a video with the phone, I pray that nobody calls me when I'm doing the video, because I got to start all over now. I don't know how to edit it. So people kept asking me for mentorship. Like, hey, can you teach me what you do? I'm like, well, that's not really what I do anymore. I'm retired. So I said, all right, I'll do one-on-one only. I'm not going to make this a thing, because I'll support you for life and all that, but I'll teach you one-on-one. You'll come down to where I live in Florida. We'll spend an entire day together, me and you and your partner if you want. And that's just how I do it. And that's my life in a nutshell. So
I love it.
Nothing too exciting.
Talk to me about, for your area, well, in Connecticut, when you were there, you talk more about cash flow and cap rates just higher. When it comes down to the appreciation in those areas, is it still something? Because usually you either get one or the other.
That's right. Yeah. If you want appreciation, you're going to buy Class A. If you want cash flow, you're going to be C, D, right? Yeah. And somewhere in the middle is B. And how I always describe those for your listeners is A, and it's usually defined by building age and location, but a better way to define it that people can relate to is A is a doctor and lawyer that you're renting to. Yep. B is a cop and a school teacher. C is she works at Walmart, he works at Dunkin' Donuts. Yeah. They make $16 an hour each, $32 an hour. They can pay $1,400 for a 2-bedroom cold flat. D, they don't have jobs, right? Yeah. So I was in the C to D world. And by the way, I got to tell you, 98% of those tenants are fantastic people, wonderful people who deserve a good, clean, safe, affordable house. And I provide that. Things break, I fix them. Where the 31-page lease and, Ronnie Slumlord comes out is when we have a problem. And I'm not a 3-strike guy. That's just what it is. So, the running it as a business is what saves you in that world. But to answer your question that's right. So in my market in Connecticut, in the CD space, typically your appreciation rates are 1% to 2% a year. Now that has not been true these last 4 or 5 years since COVID, right? It's been double that, if not a little higher. But historically, you're going to give up some appreciation in exchange for that cash flow. Of course, in the commercial space, we get to control a large portion of that, by our NOI, right? So the way I describe it, and I know you know this, maybe some of your listeners don't, the best way to look at your NOI and your cap rate is not as a return. So you think, well, a 4 cap is a return, right? So if I paid cash and it's a 4 cap, I'm $1 million cash, I'm going to get a $40,000 in return. That's not how you want to look at a 4 cap. A 4 cap is really a multiplier. For every dollar you make or save at a 4 cap goes to your NOI at 25 to 1. So it's always got to equal 100. So if it's a 10 cap, every dollar you make or save goes to your NOI is times 10. Every dollar you make or save is times 10. So that's why any of my buildings, there's just things you'll never see. You'll never see a garbage disposal, a ceiling fan, carpet, hot and cold water handles. You'll never see that, because every dollar I make or save at a 9 cap is times 11. So, so if I put in a garbage disposal, right, it hurts my NOI. Why does that hurt my NOI if I put in a garbage disposal? Because there's only 3 things that a low-income landlord's going to ask. Do I get more money? Do I rent it faster? Or do they stay longer, right? That's it. Nothing else matters. So I'm not going to get more money because I have a garbage disposal. They're not going to rent it faster or stay longer. So it's only a maintenance call to me, because what happens in low-income housing, you're going to find it's not going to work. So you're going to get a phone call. So now I got to send a guy. That goes off my NOI now. And every dollar I make or save is times 11, right? Yep. So your maintenance guy gets there, and of course there's a GI Joe in there or a golf ball. How'd that get there? I don't know, but it doesn't matter. Or let's say your Section 8 inspection is the next day and the garbage disposal doesn't work. You failed. And you have, depending on the housing authority, you have 2 weeks in which to fix it. And if you don't fix it, the rent is abated all month. You don't ever get it back. Yep. So it's only a liability. Same thing with ceiling fans, carpets, anything like that. So that's the best way to control the appreciation in my Class C and D areas, is by me controlling it, not the market. That's a long answer, I know, but
no, that's incredible. I love that. It makes my mind think a bunch, because I've had properties fail and then missing time issues, because we've had properties over in Ohio and I'm busy out here in California, and I'm like, I don't give a damn about the little things, and it's but you miss certain times because they mailed me a copy and they took their time and it got lost in the mail, whatever.
Yeah. It's happened to me too. We screwed it up too. And I can't tell you how many months rents I've lost forever. Imagine you lost an entire month's rent because a tenant puts a golf ball in a garbage disposal.
Yeah. Some BS. Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And so you mentioned even like shower water.
Hot and cold water handles. Yeah. So
okay.
Yeah. So in low income housing, if you have, let's just keep the numbers even. If you have 100 units, right? So that means you've got 200 sinks, assuming 1 bathroom, 1 kitchen. Yeah. So if you have hot and cold water handles, you have 200 breaking points.
Yeah.
Right, in your portfolio. Stick shift.
Yeah.
Well, now that doesn't matter. Well, now at 800 units, do that math. 16. So I just cut my breakage. If it moves, especially with water, if it moves, it's going to break. So I just eliminate it by having a stick shift style and no sprayers.
Yep.
Never have a sprayer. Kids love to spray with them. They break. Now it's a maintenance call. So you're not going to eliminate maintenance calls, but what you can do is minimize them with best practices. And to the listener out there that has a 2-unit building, does it matter? Probably not. No. However, build that muscle now. Yeah. Because one day you'll have 300 units and you'll remember that fat guy on some podcast said, get rid of the handles, get rid of that. And, I would take out the lawns. If you want a lawn, you're not going to want to live in my building, so I would put rocks there, right? I'd put filter fabric, 2 layers of filter fabric and rock. And when I first started off, because we go back a little bit, the reason I do rock is I get rid of the cut. Yep. Right. So in the season in Ohio, in California, it's probably year round, but in Ohio, you've got, 16-week cutting season. So they're cutting it every week. It's $35 a week to cut a 10 by 10 front lawn and nobody uses, now times 26 buildings, every dollar I make or save is times 11, 10, depending on the cap rate. Right. So, but what you do in that, you don't put little rocks, right? Because then it becomes a patio. Then they put out card tables. They play dominoes till 2 a.m., keeping all the tenants up. What you do is you put up big fist-sized rocks because you can't walk on them. You can't put a chair on them because you sit all crooked, and just those little things like that at scale, it matters, right?
Yeah.
And so again, a 2-unit doesn't matter. Get to 800, it matters.
That's so good. I love that. So you're really rent proofing these as best as you can.
As fast as you can.
Yeah. And I know that it's a heavy used word when it's like, you really can't perfectly rent this, but
it's not passive income, but it's close.
Yeah. But you've taken it to a degree I've never heard. And I love that because it is a numbers game and you're minimizing your risk tremendously, thinking about all the different alternatives there. So
yeah, and it can apply, Brandon, to your point. So you don't have to be a quote unquote slumlord to apply these lessons. So let's say you have a class B in Columbus, Ohio, nice town, right? In class B, you're renting to a cop and a school teacher. You could still apply some of these things. So I'll give you another one. If you own a decent duplex, fourplex, sixplex, whatever in Columbus, Ohio, and it's a decent building, you can still apply slumlord methodology to it. So go down into the basement and find the water shutoff valve. Now, the basement in Ohio, you have basements. In the Northeast, we have basements. And the master shutoff. Yeah, they are dungeons. Yeah. Dirt floors sometimes. Yeah. So go down to the basement, find there's one handle in that basement that shuts off the water to the whole building. Now understand the basement's full of handles, but you got to find it and paint it bright orange or something really sticks out. Because what'll happen is the lady upstairs is doing the laundry, shoves it into the washer, starts the laundry, goes to work, and then where the connection to hose slips out. Water everywhere. The downstairs tenants calls you. Oh my God, there's water coming into my kitchen. What do I do? And you're going to try to go out to the basement, shut off. What's it look like? I don't know. Now you got a tenant looking for a handle in a room full of handles. Paint it bright orange. Yeah. So now that's your get out of jail free. Just pull that handle. Crisis averted for right now. Yeah. So you can apply all these methodologies to nicer units too. And I would challenge you to do that. In fact.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I love that so much. Ron, I can just imagine you've seen a bunch of stuff over the years, having as many as 800 units at once and being so just, thinking proactively about having to fix some of these issues ahead of time. Tell me some horror stories, man. Tell me some crazy stuff that you're like, this is why we created this 31-page lead.
So yeah, and I'm not a smart guy. I don't know how to fix anything. High school educated. Yeah, I'm not dumb. I get it. But these are all not things that I was intelligent and said, oh, I'll just create this and that. This is a lot of ugly crying over many years and many units and making every mistake in the book. Here's one. So when I first started, you have an eviction, it's just a necessary evil, and landlords are the victims of eviction, not tenants, by the way. I mean, we got to pay for our lawyer, the tenant usually gets a free one, and we got to cover all the bills. So when you have an eviction, regardless of unit class, and I've learned this lesson, is you want to name a John and Jane Doe. So you're renting to Jim and Mary Smith, and you got to evict them, and you name them on the eviction. Of course, always, and I mean always, name John and Jane Doe in addition to that. And the reason is because Jim and Mary Smith are on the eviction, and then right at the last minute, somebody else is going to appear. My cousin Billy Bob moved in. Now we got to start all over, But if you name them in the beginning, and usually the marshal will charge you a little bit to add each name. But I've learned that lesson, and I've had that pulled on me when I first started, Cleaning fee addendum. Boy, I can't tell you how many times people have moved out. And even if they were a good tenant, what happens is they're moving and, that dresser won't fit, so they just leave it there.
Yep.
And then you open up all the drawers. There's 19 Chinese takeout menus, a bunch of forks, some straws, and they just but they think they're moved out, and they'll send you a text, hey, I'm all moved out. And it's like, well, okay, so I'm not going to do all that work. So I got to hire it out now. Yep. And I just, for years that happened to me. And finally, I just added a 2-page cleaning addendum, and I itemize each single item. So every item, every takeout menu, every fork, every coat hanger is $9. Yep. So leave them behind. I'm the world's most expensive maid service, and another thing I've fallen for is this happens, right? As I bet you it's happened to you. Tenant calls, needs something repaired. Who cares what it is? Something small. She calls, texts, whatever your system is, and says, oh, this is broken, whatever. Okay, great. We'll be there tomorrow. You show up there tomorrow at 10 o'clock or whatever and knock on the door. She opens it, got a sick baby in her arm. Oh, my kid's sick today. Today's not good. Or my husband worked overnight last night. He's tired, sleeping. Can he come back? No, I'm here. I'm paying the guy. The guy's here. Yeah. So, I have a $175 no let-in fee, and just those are lessons you learn over time. Yeah, it's like, that's fine. I'm here. If I've complied with all legal notice requirements, then you don't let me in. I can't force my way in. I can't kick in the door, right? Yep. So here's one I learned years ago at a building. Well, I was getting my butt kicked. I mean, this was a tough building. Building. And I run my business pretty tough.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, all the people. Yeah,
it's always a people thing. Yeah.
So, but that's why we get the good deals, right? So if it were a beautiful building, cash flowing with great tenants, I'm going to pay retail. I don't pay retail, So I am now going to pay you money, Brandon, to take over your problem. I will solve this problem. So drug dealing everywhere, and then there's an element of safety there. You got to be careful of too. And so after going back and forth. Came up with a solution. So sent out a letter to all the tenants. And I learned this from somebody else, by the way. Sent out a letter to all the tenants. Dear valued tenant, we apologize in advance for any inconvenience, but we have partnered with the local police department for the canine unit to train their drug sniffing dogs. So you're going to see a bunch of drug sniffing dogs around here. They won't go into your apartment, but they'll go into all the common areas of drugs, and we're training them. So we're apologize. All the drug dealers are going to be canines here.
Yeah.
So it worked. That's a good one. I actually learned now from somebody else. The other thing I've been burned on, tenant's going to move out, supposed to be out on the 31st, and invariably you'll get a call or a text. Oh my gosh, Ron, I didn't realize the 31st was a Sunday. My brother has to work on Sunday, so he can't get the U-Haul. He'll get it on Monday, and then I'll be out Tuesday. And they think, well, no big deal. Well, wait a minute. I pre-leased this thing usually. So that means you're moving out, somebody else moving in, but now he can't move in. So that ripple effect behind you, Mr. Chang.
Problem. Yeah.
It is a problem, right? So they think, no big deal, it's only a couple of days. Well, it is a big deal. So I have a holdover fee, right? So it's $100, right? So it's $100 per calendar day, every day beyond the date that you're supposed to leave. And by the way, that date ends on the 31st at noon. It's not just the 31st, because if you just have it on the 31st, let's say, what happens is they're moving out at 11:30 p.m., and they're waking everybody up. It's they always wait to the last minute. So you put a time on it. And those are just lessons I've learned. I could talk about those all day.
Yeah, we could create a book on that. That should be a book right there. Yeah, that's Man, that is that's a lot of wisdom, and just going through some trials and tribulations with these tenants. So over the years, you started putting this lease together. Obviously, was it with lawyers, or just as you through with issues, it just started piling up?
Little bit of both. Yeah, a little bit of both. A good lease is always a Franken lease, right? It's just built up as, I learned a lesson, put it in the lease. And then every couple of years I would take it to I had a dedicated eviction attorney. That's all she did. And just, hey, bless this, because state laws change all the time. So it's like the IRS code. Every year it's different, so that's why I make it editable. So when somebody buys it, the 31B can change it all to your local laws, customs, and traditions. But so it's a combination of things I've learned from other landlords. Being in the landlord community, you hear things like, oh, that's a good one, in the lease it goes, and so, it's grown to 31 pages. And what I tell everybody is, if you're in a blue state, the reality is that if you're in court, no matter the size of your lease, mine included, it's up to the judge.
Yeah.
They can be in there, but your honor, he signed it. And the judge can just say, yeah, I know, but I don't care. They have arbitrary powers in most locations. They can do anything they want. So the object of a good lease and a good system is to avoid court. Shock and awe is really the coin of the realm. And run it tight, keep it clean, keep the common areas clean, and just have a zero tolerance policy, and you'll go far. And I only did a month-to-month lease. I didn't do a 1-year lease. There's no advantage to it. There's no advantage, right? And everybody in low income. That's, I'm talking about people who don't care about their credit, and they're one bad decision away from being homeless. Okay, so a 1-year lease, you think, well, the advantage to a landlord on a 1-year lease is that, well, I lock in my payment all year, right? Wrong.
Yeah.
In low income, typically, it's a female. You rent to a great female, and she falls in love, meets the guy of her dreams in Atlanta, and she's gonna, hey, I'll be out next month. Now, okay, she's 5 months early. She left. What are your options at that point? So, well, you could take her to court. Sure. She works at Dunkin' Donuts and she's moving to Atlanta. You're going to take her to court? Go ahead. You're wasting your time because you get a judgment. Fantastic. Does that put money in your pocket? Absolutely not. Now you got to go collect that money. So even if you hunt her down in Atlanta and say, hey, you owe me $5,000, you could put a garnishment on her wages. Right. You know what she's going to do as soon as that hits? She's going to quit her job and go get another job. And now you got to start all over. So you're not going to go to court. They know it. You know it. And most states, even if they've got 5 months left on their lease, most states aren't going to let you have that 5 months because you have to mitigate your damages, which means they're really going to give you 2 months. So you can go after. So the reality is they're going to move. And so if you called me up and say, hey, Ron, I'm moving to Atlanta, and I could say, what? Bullshit. You've got 5 months left, Brandon. You got to stay. Do I want to do that? No, because now I got a pissed off guy in control of my unit. I'm going to say, hey, Brandon, sorry to lose you. Let me know if I can use leave it broom swept, because every item's $9 plus the other 2 pages worth of fees. I'll gut your security deposit. My goal is to get your security deposit back to you 100%. Help me do that. Blah, blah, blah. And then any truing up will be on the security deposit. If you want to leave, go. I can't stop you. There's nothing I can do. But here's the problem on the other side, why I do month to month. And it's usually I rent to a female. And what happens is you rent to a female and she's great, right? She meets all the qualifications. She moves in. She's fantastic. And about 2 months later, she's at a club and she meets Mr. Wonderful, this scumbag dude, right? He's over there with all his buddies till 3 a.m., smells like a Bob Marley concert. They're playing loud music, working on the cars, taking up 3 parking spots, but she's paying her rent. You ain't getting rid of her. Now all the other tenants in the building are pissed off and blowing up your phone, but you can't get rid of her because she's paying her rent. You're stuck with her for an entire 12 months, even though this guy whom you don't even know is now living there and he's got tenancy.
Yep.
Month to month. That's it, Brandon. We're done. I'm terminating, and I'm not telling you why. I'm just not renewing, and we're on a month to month. That's it. We're out. So it kind of gives a little bit of control to the landlord. So for that reason and many others, I only do a month to month lease.
Yeah. Talk to me about getting these deals to start off with. Like how have you gone about finding just the leads that have come in?
Yeah. So I did this much differently. I was a big on-market guy, and I know everybody says, "Oh my God, there's no good deals on the market." That's just simply not true.
Yeah.
So when you're buying for cash flow, now if you're flipping houses or wholesaling, that's different, right? Sure. So, but when you are buying for cash flow rentals, price or terms, what's more important? Not price.
Always.
Listen. If you invested in Akron, right? Or in Ohio, I think.
Yeah.
So Akron, low end city, nice city, by the way, but low end city, you can buy a duplex for almost nothing, right?
Yep.
Or Detroit. Well, I'd pay you $1 million if I can have terms, Brandon.
Yep.
I'd pay you $1 million if I can have terms. Yep. What are my terms? Well, I'll pay you $1 a month for $1 million months. So there we go. Yeah. Right, for life. Yeah. So
0% interest.
Yeah. So I can't stand when people are trying to go off market because everybody's got the same list you do.
Sure.
Right. And so everybody's looking for that needle in a haystack, somebody to give away their property. But you're not the only one with that list. So you're spending time, energy, and money trying to find a deal. I'm spending my energies crafting a deal. This person wants to sell. I want to buy. Now, 9 times out of 10, we're not going to get there. But that 1 time out of 10, they want to sell, I want to buy. So I would structure the deal with either owner financing and do a sub 2 if needed. I prefer not to. Master lease with an option or without an option to take control of the building with almost no money down. About half the units I ever owned, I never went to a bank for.
Really?
And then when I sold them, I held the note. So I'm the bank now in the first position. Should have done that years ago, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh man, I had no idea. I always thought buy, and I didn't think about the sell side of things. And so I would structure them much differently. How I went through that process was different, right?
Yeah.
So I applied a sales methodology to it, and I had a certain time. I talked to a certain person at a certain time in the process, and I'd offer a certain percentage with terms. And 9 times out of 10, I fail. I strike out, and I'm happy with that percentage. And then I just on to the next one. And so I did it a little bit differently. And everybody's like, oh, no good deals on market. It's like, that's just not true. I got to create the deal. It's not good as it is. I acknowledge that, but I got to make that happen. So I craft my deals. I don't look for them.
Yeah. The creativity is where it's at, of like
it really is,
and getting creative with it. Talk to me when it comes down to, you mentioned, I wish I would have done this earlier and sooner, being the bank and getting creative and holding the notes. For somebody that might be just getting started, or maybe, I don't know, a dozen properties under their belt, what would you say to help them get those creative juices going to become more of the bank and get there sooner than later? Because I do see it very frequently. A lot of real estate investors, like towards once they get more educated in it and like deeper in, they're like, oh, they become the bank, and it's always the best place to be.
It is. So, and to your point, you bring up a good point, Brandon, that it's the experienced landlords you want to deal with. It's the new guy who just bought his first 4-family 3 years ago. That guy doesn't want to make a deal. No. Right. It's the guy who owns 68 units, been doing it 30 years. That guy on the buy side wants to make a deal. I sold, like I said, I'm the bank on a number of buildings.
Yep.
And you think I could have had the cash. I had one building where, and I am blessed since I owned the REIA. I just put it on Facebook, got a full price cash offer. I didn't have to list it. I turned it down. I don't want the cash.
Yeah.
And I'm a blue collar guy, I don't come from money. So you think that it was a good amount of cash. I'd rather have the cash flow, because think about it. What am I going to do with that cash? I'm going to put it in the stock market and get my butt kicked.
Yeah.
Right. Or
it's almost like a rental. It's just,
it is without no tenants or toilets or troubles. Yeah. And I say this constantly is like, if I'd have taken that cash, let's just say it's $1 million or an even number, and put it in the stock market, what's that backed by? If I bought Apple stock, what's it backed? It's backed by nothing. I can't control nothing. Is Apple going to go out of business? Probably not. Well, they said the same thing about Enron. They were the 7th biggest company in the world at the time. So I can't control it. It's not backed by anything. Whereas this $1 million on this side is paying me every month, and it's backed by the real estate, and it's a commercial mortgage. The foreclosure process much quicker.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So even if here's the tip.
What does that look like?
So you should never, I would never hold the note on a residential mortgage, that especially if they live there, because so it's in California, it's probably 5 years to get them out.
Yeah, it's crazy. Don't ever
it's Russia.
The blue and red states, please.
So here's what you do. So let's say you own a 2-family in California, and obviously check your local laws, but you own a 2-family in California, okay? Yep. And you own it and you want to sell it, and somebody says, hey, I owner financing. Oh my goodness. Okay. So you can get a better price. You get the interest rate, but it's a residential. So you can still write a commercial mortgage, even though it's a residential property. You can write a commercial mortgage on it, right? So write a commercial mortgage, and they would sign an affidavit that they're never going to live there. So you're only going to do it against their LLC, not personally. Yep. Okay. So I did that on a 4-unit building, my smallest building. I had a 4-unit building. I've owned it for years. I sold it via a commercial mortgage, right? So he's not going to live there, and he never will live there. And he signs an affidavit. So the foreclosure process, we're talking about 3 months, versus 3 years in Connecticut. So So think about the sell side. So you amass buildings, and you get to be an old guy like me. I'll be 59 next month. And so now you the arc of your life is you're not in growth mode anymore, right? You're down throttling. And so I would sell some of my buildings. I'm holding the note on like 7 of them, okay? And which is nice. I should have done it years ago. So, but I had a couple of them where I still had mortgages on them. So if I have the bank has the first position. So if I'm going to hold the note, that means I have to take a second position. No, I don't want the second position. Let's use this. Second, they can't foreclose on the first.
No.
I got to pay out the first. Then I can foreclose. I can do that. So what I did was I was fortunate that I didn't have big mortgages. So I said to the buyer of the building, hey, I'm just going to simple numbers here. I need $100,000 down. And I take that 100,000 and pay off my first note.
Sure.
You know, so I never get the 100 at closing. It just kind of the lawyers transfer. That's it.
Yeah.
So I use their down payment to pay off my first position. So now I'm in the first position.
Yeah.
Then basically that equity, instead of you getting paid out, you're getting paid out over time, which is
that's right.
Yeah.
It really is. And then it also, the depreciation recapture you still have to pay, and taxes you still have to pay, but you get to drip it out. So I wrote 40-year mortgages on all my buildings because the payoff is smaller, right? So every month it's almost all interest, and with a 10-year balloon. So in 10 years of paying me, they've paid off almost no principal. A little bit, not much. But that tax bill that I owe the government, I still owe it, but now it's just a little bit every year instead of this monster bill.
Do you put any prepayment penalties in there?
I did, 5-year, 5% prepayment penalty. And to wrap up this story, that 4-family I told you I sold, that was about 2 years ago. I sold it via a commercial mortgage. He just paid it off 6 months ago. He sold it. He sold it. So I was like, that's cool. So I got like a $22,000 prepayment penalty. Yeah.
Okay,
like,
cool.
Yeah.
So almost like a DSCR loan type of thing.
Exactly.
Helping them out and making it a win-win. I love it.
Yeah.
I had some more questions with that. There's a lot of juice right there. There's a lot of good things.
So acquire them with owner financing, amongst other ways. But owner financing, you can offer a higher price, of course, depending on the deal. So to the seller, they get a higher price. We can close next Thursday.
Yeah.
We'll close next Thursday. Yeah. There's no appraisal, inspection, or mortgage contingency. Now, I would recommend you walk the building. I'm not saying to not inspect the building, but not a formal inspection. And, but I don't know how to fix anything. I would hear from some of my students. Then pay a contractor $100 or take them out to dinner.
Yeah.
A guy you work with and say, hey, show me the big shit. A loose doorknob, I get, but how's the roof? How's the structure? How's the windows? How's the mechanicals? After that, depending on a lot of variables, it's all bullshit, right?
Yeah.
So acquire them creatively, sell them creatively.
I love
the
40 years is a good one. It's funny that it's in the new space right now too of
50 year.
Yeah.
Well, you can do anything you want, right?
Yeah.
So I'm in the first position, so we can do anything we want to do. It's all it is.
Yeah, you're just controlling that. I love it.
And it's good for them too. Now listen, it is because their cash flow is better now.
Yep.
Now, of course, that comes at the price to them. That comes at not much pay down, right? But they know that going in, this is a commercial transaction. This is not a residential transaction. So there's no, he fooled me, Your Honor. No, it's
also one of those situations that as appreciation takes place and so forth, just
keeps it all.
Just value. They can sell, they can refinance, they can
absolutely. They own the building. Yeah. So and people that when I started buying with owner financing, my buddies, at the bar would always like, what do you like meet a guy every month in an alley and pay him cash? I'm like, God, no. There's people. If you take one thing from this conversation, take this. There's no difference between an owner financing mortgage and a big bank mortgage. None. Zero. Capital Z. None. It's still lawyers and closings and deeds and escrows. And, it's not a handshake agreement. And people always think, then as soon as I pay him back, I'll own the house. No, you own the house at closing. Most real estate transactions, you own the house at closing. It's not like a car where you buy a car, you make your payments, then they send you the title. You get the title at closing. There's a mortgage on the property, which is really just a lien on the building is all that is.
Just for protection.
So they own the building. I have a lien against it. That's the mortgage. So it's really not that complicated, but if you've never done it, it can be overwhelming. Yeah.
But it can be simplified. And I love the analogy that you gave for the stocks versus having a physical asset, something that you've already done. And it's like, if you being the bank, if they miss their payment, if you have to foreclose, if you have to take it back, it's a physical asset that you know what to do. Versus stocks, you're just not in control. If Elon tweets something and got to, it's like, there goes all your money. So.
Talk to me, or somebody flies into a building.
Yep.
COVID. I mean, think about the events we had in the last 20 years. We had the dot-com bust of '01,
Yep.
9/11 on '01, 2008,
Yep.
COVID.
Yep.
Every 7 or 8 years, the world's ending. And now, do property values go down in that scenario? Yeah. '08.
Oh, yeah.
That sucked. But rent never went down.
No.
Yeah. When was the last time you heard a landlord say, hey, I'm going to lower the rent this year? Almost never. Maybe I don't raise it in '08, '09.
Sure.
You're lower.
Yep.
Yes, man.
That's good. So you mentioned if like somebody can't live there, you make that you're selling it to the LLC, not the individual, and
That's right.
and
Always.
you put an addendum in there that they can't live there. What if they break that and they stay there anyway?
Sure. So, which they could do. They own the building, right? So they sign an affidavit of non-occupancy. It's an actual affidavit filed with the court that says, hey, my LLC is buying the building. I'm not buying it. It's not a personal transaction. It's a commercial transaction, and a commercial mortgage and a commercial note. And along with that, so we have the closing, and he decides to move in, and then he doesn't pay me. So now I foreclose. So could he stand up in court going, but Your Honor, I lived there? Sure, he could say that. And I was like, but he signed an affidavit with the court, so he would lose. So that is, you definitely want to have that. And that's also part of the reason why you never loan to an LLC. When I say loan, owner financing. So or never to a personal name. It's always to an LLC. So, right.
I love that. Awesome. Man, Ron, this is good. This is really good. I haven't
it's been fun.
This good of a dialogue in a minute of really breaking down all the different things there. So I love it. Talk to me. What does the future look like for you now? I know you're kind of settling down. You just got rid of the REIA group. You got rid of a bunch of properties. What now?
I don't know, man. Maybe this is Mother Nature's way to start wrapping it up. Huh? I don't know. I lived in Florida. I live in St. Augustine, Florida, just south of Jacksonville, about half an hour south of Jax. Go Jaguars. Yeah. So I just do my lease, and I do one-on-one mentoring. It's literally, I spend an entire day with people. I don't do very many of them. I do maybe 4 a year. I'm blessed to live in, and we do it in my community. I live in a beach community, and we have a clubhouse. It's a private club. And so I do it there, and we just spend 8-10 hours together in a room with a PowerPoint, a big screen, and a whiteboard. And, I teach people how to identify, acquire without banks, and manage lower income buildings all throughout the country. And, it's, I hate to be a cliche and say it's become a passion of mine, but it kind of has. But yeah, so I sell the lease online at bulletprooflease.com. And that's really what's next for me. I've got a wife and 3 dogs, and we like to travel, and my life is kind of boring, I suppose, these days, isn't it?
I love that. It's funny to see, like, when you're in it originally for yourself, and like you make yourself successful, family, and everything's kind of doing well, and then you start helping out other people too, and they get there further, faster, better in some cases.
Yeah.
Like, damn. That feels good. Like
it does. I know. And I've never been that guy. I'm just not that guy. I own it. I admit it.
Yep.
But yeah, it was a weird experience at the REIA. And I could point to quite a few people that, like, the trajectory of their lives and their children's lives are materially better because of their involvement with our REIA. And I had a part of that.
Yep.
Yeah. A weird feeling for me. I'll be the first to admit that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
I agree. Yeah, I grew up the same way, raised in New Jersey, and so I could definitely relate in that manner, and then eventually started to give back and helping other people do things further, faster, and it's a unique type of feeling, I guess.
Yes, we're blessed that we're in that position to to be able to do that. I agree 100%.
I love it. How can people get a hold of you?
I'm pretty easy. I'm on TikTok, Bulletproof Lease. I'm probably the only 59-year-old guy on TikTok. I got a Facebook page. I post on there and all that. But bulletprooflease.com is probably the best way to get a hold of it. It's my website. And I think there's a link on there to my social channels, but it's really TikTok, Facebook. I do have Instagram and YouTube and all that. I can't tell you how to. Yeah, I do post on there occasionally. So I'm
just go to Bulletproof Lease for all of those different platforms.
Yeah, they should all be on there. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Well, guys, I highly recommend reach out to Ron. Wealth of knowledge if you're doing anything for either creative real estate or, focusing on terms versus cash. And then anything really with tenants and focusing on more cash flow, protecting yourself and running this like a true business, then you're going to want to reach out to Ron. You can do so on his platforms. That's bulletproofleasing.com.
Bulletproof lease, just lease. Yeah, bulletprooflease.com.
Cool.
Yep.
And if you guys want to get a hold of me, you can always do so on Instagram. It's Brandon Elliott Investments, otherwise Credit Counsel Elite on Instagram. And if you're looking for funding up to $500,000 with rates as low as 0%, we could show you how to get it every 6 months on repeat per person. Reach out to us. That's on creditcounselelite.com. That's creditcounselelite.com. And look, if you have not subscribed yet to Ready, Set, Go Real Estate Investing Podcast, what are you waiting for? What are we doing here? Make sure you go subscribe. You get the newest notification every single Monday. After listening to a few episodes, leave that 5-star review. Appreciate you guys all so much. Enjoy the holidays. We'll catch you next following Monday. Ron, appreciate you so much. Had a blessed time today. Thank you.
Thank you, Brandon. See you, buddy.
This has been another episode of Ready, Set, Go Real Estate Investing Podcast, brought to you by Brandon Elliott. For more information, please visit BrandonElliottInvestments.com. Also, please don't forget to like, share, and leave a comment below. Thanks again for joining. Until next time, God bless.